I'm Andrew Russell, owner and founder of RCG Mortgage, and this is Dan Ellis. This is Doug Catteray. You know what, guys? I am sick and tired of hearing LOs say all the time, man, my mortgage business sucks.
Yeah, true.
Do you guys ever hear that?
That's like probably the most used conversation we have.
25.
But they're not looking in the mirror. They're not understanding why. What they do is it's so short-sighted. They chase payout. But what they don't realize is when you chase payout, typically you're a one-man band. And a one-man band, especially in the state of New York, it's so hard closing loans here. You need the team. You need some structure. What do you guys think?
Oh my gosh, how long do we have today?
Forever.
Well, in 25 years of doing this, I mean, I've heard it, I think, every day. Whether I'm in the production capacity or in coaching capacity, I just know that everybody's chasing the dollar. There's no way that nobody has any sort of structure to actually develop people. And I think that that's the core of the problem.
You ever seen a Super Bowl team win with just a quarterback?
Never.
Exactly. What do you think, Doug?
You know, most of the time, everybody runs up against what is actually being offered as value inside of organizations. The problem with most businesses is they think value is just closing on time. They think it's having happy clients. And I think there's an ascension that we can go past that really helps people monetize their business in a different way. But more importantly, it helps elevate the skill of everybody on the team. And the problem that I see more often than not is the value definition for every company is just different. And there's no standard to help grow and ascend past where they're currently at.
I mean, think about it. To be a top producing loan officer, think of all the layered stuff that you need. You need CRM, you need great technology. I mean, you can't scale without great technology. You need amazing processing, like contract close processing, because, you know, for me, I feel like my psychology background, LOs, there must be something in their DNA or their disc profile that they ruminate. Ruminate meaning when things start going wrong on their transactions and they're the one-man band and they're so hyper-focused on it, their whole day is shot. Like they're in their email, they're thinking about it. They can't get out of that one or two specific deals. And I feel like that's so common. What do you guys think? What are some of the reasons why LOs get kind of caught up in that stuff?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, you were a guidance counselor, right? And I was a teacher.
When I used to have hair.
Yeah, me too. A lot more. So, you know, as a teacher, we did lesson planning every week. You know, we had kids all day long, so we had to prepare in advance for the week. And when I got into the mortgage business, which is by pure accident, and that's another story, but I think most of us can say that, but there's no plan. You either sink or you swim, and nobody really helps you through that process. I mean, sometimes people get lucky and they find the right person, they find a mentor, and that person somehow helps them succeed. But in most situations across the country, you either sink or swim on your own with no support. And from that place, yes, if you do get to the place where you actually start, swimming, then what's the next step? You try to figure out how to do that over and over and over. And like, Doug, what is your famous saying? Like, wake up on Monday morning and then
you're unemployed.
Yeah.
You wake up after any closing, after any transaction's over, and you wake up unemployed, and you got to go out there and find another deal. So the only thing you really have is your brand. Like, you have a personal brand. That's why you lean into your loans, is because you're the promise maker and the promise keeper. And you can't do that on every loan and expect your business to thrive. That's why most people.
Well, let me ask you a question, Doug. And no, it's not, will the Jets beat the Lions in this year's Super Bowl? Because we all know that answer. Imagine, what if instead of an LO being totally on an island, chasing the payout, having no support, ruminating over that one or two transactions that don't close because 100% of nothing is nothing, right? Imagine they work with a guy like Doug Catteray, a growth, partner, with an individualized growth plan. What could that do for their business?
Man, what I've seen after about 10 years of solid coaching LOs across the country is if you start with an idea of what you're actually doing, what's your definition of a successful transaction? I've interviewed...
Well, what's the typical answer, right? Successful transaction is like, it closes on time, you high-five the client at closing, you offer them the Veuve Clicquot, everyone's happy, right?
Yeah. So I think none of us go to university or go to college to become lenders, and so we don't really have a foundational understanding of what's necessary to be business owners. And so in there, we don't ever really learn what the definition of a successful transaction is. Most everyone says the same thing: close on time, happy clients, good reviews, make money. Great, that's perfect for most people. But when you're sick and tired of just doing that, what are you really after? And when I tell them there's a different model, there's a different ascension, and the definition is, how about earning a referral or an introduction to someone else before the deal closes? Not after, but before. Boy, that changes your perspective on everything when it comes to the foundational pieces. That's like business 101. Yeah. We're not in the lending space just to make money and close loans. We're in the lending space to perpetuate our business by getting our clients who love us, who've trusted us, to give us introductions to other people they care about. We just want to help people avoid the mistakes so many others make. That's why we're even sitting here. We have found that the lending space that we're in, no one is offering them up solutions and being able to deliver on it in a way that we understand it from our backgrounds.
And this is why we created, the Broker Accelerator. So the Broker Accelerator was definitely positioned because we've seen the typical, I need my phone to ring more. When the phone rings a lot, what happens? You have to build a team. And if you're, chasing payout and you're doing it all yourself, it's very difficult, right? Staffing, benefits, all that stuff. And then from there, the third piece, when you get all the business and you have a team, are you at the right place? So strategy. Yeah. Dan, talk strategy within there.
So it's interesting when you talk about strategy. So, I've coached for 10 years now, and every time that I find the problem, it's always the person in the mirror, right? So nobody fixes the person in the mirror. So you can have all the tactics, all the strategy that you want, and if that person isn't an ideal fit for that tactic or strategy, they fail. And so they think, I'm not the right fit for the business. The place that I'm working is the wrong, a wrong place. I've got the wrong leadership. They start blaming it on other people. They don't take personal responsibility. And so on a strategic side of things, I think what I've seen work for the people that I've worked with is this, help them figure out what they want, why they want it, figure out what they're good at, find out what their limitations are, and start there, and then attach them to the strategy and tactics that work for them.
Do you think a crazy idea, Doug, if you were able to take a loan officer under your wing, could you potentially, if they followed your lead, double their business in 3 months? Could it be possible?
I don't ever like making guarantees, but what I do know is that
your body's making guarantees, your mouth can't cash, or what's that say? Your mouth's writing checks, your body,
your ass can't cash.
Yeah.
I'd never want to profess a guarantee that I can double their business, but what I have found is that if you change some core fundamentals like tracking, it is shocking to me how many times I've leaned into originators and business owners in any space. How often I ask them what are their numbers and they just stare at me with a blank look or they guess.
I mean, I was that guy a few years ago. Granted, it was Zoom.
Sure.
But yeah, you were saying, hey, Andrew, how'd you do last month? I gave you the numbers. Well, how many at-bats did you get? How many converted to, pre-qualifications, pre-approvals? And I would just look at you and be like,
Right, deer in headlights. And so what I find is you can pretty much grow your business by 30 to 40% in 90 days if you're willing to apply some of the principles that are basic, just tracking. Do you know your numbers? From there, everything is possible, right? The strategy, the growth, the evolution of the company you work with is all built around knowing your numbers. And that, to me, is probably one of the easiest things to change if you're open to the idea. And if you're surrounded by a culture, right? A community of other people that know their numbers forces you and helps elevate you to want to know your numbers. And that's what RCG's always done. That's why you and I have worked so well for so many years, is because you've become that guy that knows his numbers and has now created a culture inside of your organization that knows their numbers, and that changes everything in your decision-making process.
So within the Broker Accelerator, I heard there's this cool thing called an RCG playbook.
Yeah.
So Dan, unfortunately, again, not to unleash all the secret sauce, but why don't you give a quick once-over of what that playbook might look like?
Well, again, when we're talking
how long do we have, right?
Yeah, like forever. But, just to be, accurate here and for the sake of time, the first thing when I talk about strategy, it's like, what's the right strategy for the person, right? The individual. Because, again, it's not a one-size-fits-all. That's not this business. If you talk to producers across the country, they all do it a little bit different. And it's based on their personality. They find what they're great at. So in terms of Accelerator, we take it up a notch, right? We don't go right into the tactics and then push them through this plan. We say, okay, who are you? What do you want? What is it that you're looking to do?
Make them almost do like an MRI.
Yeah.
Like you want to see what you're working with.
Yeah, you got to look at the whole picture, right? That's what strategy is
because each
all
person
about.
you work with could be different, right? One person's problems or flaws could be someone else's strengths, and you kind of uncover that.
Right. So it's just like any sort of plan, right? So you customize the plan. You'd say, I'm going to take these 3 things out because they don't fit with this personality, and I'm going to put these 3 things in because it does. And you know what's amazing about that? You can start getting results when you're actually good at the thing that you're asked to do on a daily basis. And because it builds momentum, it builds confidence, and from there, it builds certainty. And that kind of stuff is contagious.
How do you guys feel about accountability?
Love it. Of all the things that I pride myself on, that's one of the things that I tend to focus on, because the industry that we're in lacks a significant amount of accountability. We're in this space because traditional salespeople Realtors and lenders in this space don't like accountability. That's why they chose to be in sales. Like, they want the freedom, but that freedom comes with a double-edged sword, right? And so when you find that accountability, you find a manager or you find somebody that's in a higher echelon position, but that's where we found the biggest gap, right? Yeah. You have people that manage, but you don't have people that coach. You have people that lean in, but they don't know how to manage or lead the person. Yeah. And so that's essentially what we got really good at in our respective philosophies around coaching and developing, right? It's about leaning people into being more accountable to themselves based on the goals, wants, needs, dreams, desires of what they want. And once you understand what their specific talents are, you're able to take everything that we've collected and we're able to apply it in different ways at different times for them to get the results that they're looking for.
What do you think is the biggest impediment to a loan officer's success?
Outside themselves? I really do think it's accountability. And maybe it's my athletic background. I mean, when you're into performance and you're into winning and you're into like growing and advancing, and you have an athletic background, you realize if you look back, you go, hey, I probably wasn't as sharp in the off season as I was once I had a coach and I got in the in season, right? So you play with your team in the off season, you're pretty good, talent's there. But
for me, when I played football, it was always like the season started, and I was like, oh, crap, I think I should have done a couple more sprints this summer.
That's exactly
And they always find themselves in the same spot.
That's right.
Well, this industry, everybody wings it. Like, this is an industry where we can make more money than doctors. Let's just use that as a framework, right? And if you ask most originators, how much time did they practice their craft before they showed up, whether it's a presentation, whether it's a meeting with an agent or referral partner? Zero for zero. Like, they will literally say, I didn't do any preparation for this. And when you give them an idea or a strategy, they love it, but then they show up and they wing it the next time, because there's no one holding them accountable.
Yeah, I'll give you two examples. So that's why we, the Broker Accelerator, have Roberto Monaco, the best influencer coach in the industry, because we've spoken many times and he's actually coached me. So if an LO has an opportunity, for example, to meet an agent at a diner or for a drink or to go to a Keller Williams office and speak to the office, they show up, they have their typical printouts, and they have no clue what to say. So that's something that has to be coached up. Have you guys seen stuff like that?
Just about every darn person that you talk to, right? I mean, that's the truth. And that's what, accountability is all about. That's what planning is all about. That's what strategy is all about. You say, what do I really want? That's the plan. You're like, okay, some people, if you ask them, what do you really want? They can't even tell you.
Or even worse, I've had people that are like, Andrew, how did you get business from Maria? I met her at the diner. We had a great conversation and nothing ever happened. And they're like, well, what's your strategy for follow-up? And they're like, well, I just thought she'd send me a deal. So there has to be some real dialed-in strategies, which is what you guys excel at.
Yeah. I mean, with what do you really want? So let's say you went into a diner or you went into any spot and you'd say, I'm going to go meet with a realtor and I'm hoping that maybe I'm going to hit it off and they're going to send me business. That's a bad plan, right? So what are you going to do after that meeting? How are you going to add value to the relationship? How are you going to, really connect with the people that you're there? Like, nobody thinks about this stuff. They just show up, they start talking to the people, they leave the meeting and they say, hey, it ended well. And then how did it end? They said they were going to give me a deal. And that's how it all goes. Like, even the best of the best start there.
So what's one nugget? Like, what's one good takeaway from our first episode of, man, my mortgage business sucks? What's a great takeaway, Doug, that someone could take as a nugget to help kind of flip the script?
Man, for me, it's always been, how do you define a successful transaction? I think it starts with that philosophy. If you can shift your mindset from not just closing on time, because we've been part of transactions that get closed on time, but they're bruised, beaten, and battered by the time they cross the finish line, no one wins there. No one wins, and you wake up unemployed. And so if you can learn to look at your business from the standpoint of, what am I doing to care for my clients? That's a much longer conversation, but for me, it's an identity around professional and personal mindsets. If you can learn that the definition is more about earning those introductions to others that they care about, be the advisor, ascend to that level where you're just trying to help the people in their life, avoid the mistakes that so many others make. That's the biggest takeaway. That's the core of everything that I believe matters in our space. It changes the operations, it changes the leadership, it changes the value, it changes the strategy, but it starts with the individual going, I want something more than just what everybody else does.
What do you think, Dan?
I'd say take personal responsibility. I mean,
accountability.
Accountability, personal responsibility. Say, hey, listen, it starts here, right? My business does suck. All these things do suck, but we create those sort of things, right? So you take personal responsibility. You'd say, I got to be honest. This part of my business is really terrible. I had a lot to do with that. And what I need to do, and here's the nugget, surround myself with people or a person that's actually solved that specific problem that's going in the same direction you want to go.
Yeah, for me, it's make sure you position yourself as a loan officer at a mortgage broker company, because brokers do it better. It is irrefutable, lower rates, lower closing costs, better speed, exponential service levels, all the products instead of some. Position yourself obviously at a place where you can service all the clients instead of some. But of course, I got a shout out to New York. Also, make sure you have that New York grit and grind.
That's it. It's probably the intangible that everybody needs.
That's right.
So if you're sick of your mortgage business sucking, join our community. Dan, tell them about what the community offers.
Yeah, so there's a lot of communities that, they talk about all general ideas, but here at Help My Mortgage Business Sucks, we get really real, right? So when it comes to taking personal responsibility, if you want to take personal responsibility and actually make changes in your business, join us at Help My Mortgage Business Sucks, and we'll get you started.
Until next time, we'll see you then.